Hello everyone. Now of course you've seen everybody else talking about Julian freaking Assange and wiki pissing leaks, but I won't be doing that. Why? Because I'm too uninformed. So I'm gonna keep it real and do what we should all be doing in the atheist community here on YouTube and just criticize theology, just non-stop. Over and over and over again. I'm kidding, of course. I do actually hope not to stagnate and not to just keep making the same bullshit rehashed videos on the same stupid boring issues. I am trying to bring up new issues, or in this case, bring a new perspective to an old classic. You see, I've been thinking, what is one criticism of theology that I have never seen an adequate answer to? And I'm not talking about answers where I'm like, I can see where you were going, but here's where I disagree answers. I'm talking about a criticism for which the answers have all been absolutely fucking insane. The issue I'm talking about is the problem of evil. Specifically, in the applied question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Now, I think this is really interesting because, as I said, this is one of those questions for which all the responses I've seen to it have been absolutely crazy. And I'm honestly stunned that adult, mature, Christian, Jewish and Islamic leaders can hold these without seeing the massive problems with them. First of all, we're going to look at the Christian apologetic site gotquestions.org. Here is the question again. Why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? The answer is as follows. This is one of the most difficult questions in all of theology. God is eternal, infinite, omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Why should human beings, not eternal, infinite, omniscient, omnipresent, or omnipotent, expect to be able to fully understand God's ways? Oh God, classic response there. God could tell you why bad things happen to good people, but you wouldn't understand it anyway, so what's the point? Great. The book of Job deals with this issue. Oh yes, I remember that book. That book where Satan makes a bet with God that he can torture the shit out of someone to the point where they stop believing in him. And God's like, check my man Job out. So Satan gets to torture this guy endlessly, but Job still remains true to the Lord, and so Satan loses the bet. To be quite honest though, and this might just be my cynical atheist mindset, from that, I tend to think that Satan kind of won in that particular situation. Oh no, after I spent ages torturing that guy, he still believes in you. I guess all that torture was just for my own sick pleasure then, said Satan. Moving on. Why do bad things happen to good people? The biblical answer is that there are no good people. Bullshit. I've heard this all before. God knowingly created us as imperfect. And don't give me that Adam and Eve shit, that they brought it on themselves. If God truly is omniscient, it meant he knew that they were going to fall. So like I said, God created us to be imperfect, and then somehow thinks he can hold us to the standard of perfection. Like I said, bullshit. On top of that, you can be a good person without being perfect. That's what the word good means. Not bad, not perfect. Good. Maybe I'm just playing with semantics there, I don't know. But even if we aren't good, something else that I've reiterated time and time again is the fact that we still don't deserve an eternity in hell, which is what this text suggests with the line, even the most terrible misery we could experience on this planet is merciful compared to what we deserve, eternal hell in the lake of fire. Can't you feel that Christian love? Like I've said time and time again, if we believe that God is just and that the punishment should fit the crime, there is literally nothing that any mortal human being could do to deserve an eternity in hell. Hell is infinite pain for an infinite amount of time. The only way that anyone could ever deserve eternity in hell is if they irrevocably damage the entirety of reality for the rest of time, permanently. That's the only way they could deserve eternity in hell. So no matter how bad we are, we still don't deserve hell. They go on to say, a better question would be, why does God allow good things to happen to bad people? Let's click that link. The Christian apologetics / mental gymnastics behind this is that basically we're all evil and deserve hell, so why does anything good happen to us? They go on to answer. Question, why does God allow good things to happen to bad people? Both questions refer to what seems to be the very perplexing injustice we witness every day. Now this continues and it's quite long, so I'll just give you the gist of it, but I will link it all in the description so you can go read it for yourself. Basically, they go on to talk about a guy called Asaph. He was complaining to God that he was seeing bad people all around him live amazing lives, and he couldn't understand why God was letting this happen. They answer it as such. Asaph envied these evil people until he realized one very important thing. When he entered the sanctuary of God, he fully understood their final destiny. When I tried to understand all this, it was oppressive to me till I entered the sanctuary of God. Then I understood their final destiny. Surely you place them on slippery ground. How suddenly they are destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. As a dream when one awakes, so when you arise, O Lord, you will despise them as fantasies. Those who have temporary riches on earth are in reality spiritual beggars because they do not have true riches. eternal life. So don't worry, after death, you know that thing from where no one has ever returned to tell us if there actually is anything after it? Well, after that, you go to heaven, they go to hell. So brilliant, problem solved. Your rewards come after you die. And you get to be safe in the comforting Christian knowledge that all the bad people are burning forever in a lake of fire. Eternal pain of the worst kind for the most immeasurable amount of time. We move on to Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People by Matt Slick. So he starts with, there are two ways to look at this question. First of all, technically speaking, there are no good people. Fuck off. Moving on. On the other hand, from a human perspective, there are decent people who are very nice. They are honest, don't lie, don't steal, and treat people very well. So though they aren't perfect, they are trying to do what's right. So why would God allow bad things to happen to them? The easiest answer lies in the effect of sin. Sin is in the world and affects everyone to different degrees. I once heard an illustration where someone said that when someone throws a grenade into a crowd, one person gets hit but another does not. That's how sin is. It affects people differently, some a lot and some a little. So God made this nebulous concept of sin that works in such a way that if you commit a particular sin in a particular way at a particular time, the punishment you receive to it may be more severe than if someone else committed the same sin under a different set of circumstances. Why? Dunno, that's just how sin works. Accept it. So bad things happen to good people because sin is kind of random in who it strikes. Sometimes you're just going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which absolutely sounds like the kind of circumstances that an omniscient, omnipotent God would create. Good going, Matt. But hold it there. Let's just back up for a second and consider this from a different angle. Even if that was true, that's still not fucking fair. It doesn't help. In fact, it makes things worse. Why do bad things happen? Because God doesn't care. Brilliant. In his final paragraph, he says, we must ask, if we want God to stop bad things from happening to good people, where is the line to be drawn? How good must a person be in order to be saved from bad things? There is no line. We're not saying that there is like a threshold, and if you're above that threshold, God can't touch you. He has to leave you alone and let only good things happen to you. But if you're below that line, God can fuck up your life in any way you want, and he's completely justified. That's not what we're asking for. The question we're asking is, why do some people who are generally good have generally bad lives? He goes on. Also, what would constitute something that's bad? What is bad to one person might not be bad for another. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're so right. I mean, some people might actually quite like getting cancer. One man's trash is another man's treasure, eh? And his last sentence is just so hilariously lazy. Just listen to this. So, the question becomes difficult to answer the more we look at it, so the best thing to do is trust that God allows things to happen to us for a reason. Oh, it's too difficult to think about. Just trust in God, alright? I don't want to think about this. I'm getting a headache. Fuck you, Matt Slick. Moving on to the Jews. The same question, why do bad things happen to good people, is posed on Chabad.org. I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know, Jews speak funny. It might be Chabad. But anyway, Chabad.org describe themselves as such. Our mission is to utilize internet technology to unite Jews worldwide, empower them with knowledge of their 3,300-year-old tradition, and foster within them a deeper connection to Judaism's rituals and faith. So it's basically an all-purpose Jew site. The Jew people. And I am going to actually tell you how the question is specifically asked on this website, because I think it's quite funny. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why is this world so unfair? Please don't tell me we can't understand God's ways. I'm sick of hearing that. I want an explanation. Me too, Mr. Jew. Me too. Rabbi Aaron Moss answers like this. Are you sure you want an explanation? Do you really want to know why the innocent suffer? I think not. You are far better off with the question than with an answer. You are bothered by the fact that people suffer undeservedly, as you should be. Any person with an ounce of moral sensitivity is outraged by the injustices of our world. Abraham, the first Jew, asked God, should the judge of the whole world not act fairly? Moses asked, why have you treated this people badly? Moses, apparently not an expert in English grammar. Oh well, I don't think it was his first language. We'll let it slide. And today we still ask, why, God? Why? But what if we found the answer? What if someone came along and gave us a satisfying explanation? What if the mystery were finally solved? What if we asked why and actually got an answer? If this ultimate question were answered, then we will be able to make peace with the suffering of innocence, and that would be unthinkable. Worse than innocent people suffering is others watching their suffering unmoved. And that's exactly what would happen if we were to understand why innocents suffer. We would no longer be bothered by their cry. We would no longer feel their pain, because we would understand why it is happening. No? Rabbi Aaron Moss, who apparently teaches Kabbalah, Talmud, and practical Judaism in Sydney, Australia, seems to be misunderstanding what an answer is. People don't seek answers so that they can then be okay with the problem. People seek answers so that upon attaining the new information, in said answer, they will realise that there isn't a problem. In this case, people are not asking why do bad things happen to good people in order to be morally okay with bad things happening to good people. They're asking it so that they can get an explanation as to why bad things happen to good people and why that does not conflict with God being good. Ergo, so that there is no problem. So yeah, this Australian Jew apparently doesn't understand what an answer is, and how this weird, strange concept of questions work. But then it gets worse. He goes on to say, when you have an explanation, pain doesn't seem so bad anymore. We can tolerate suffering when we know why it's happening. And so, if we could make sense of innocent people suffering, if we could rationalise tragedy, then we could live with it. We would be able to hear the cry of sweet children in pain and not be horrified. We would tolerate seeing broken hearts and shattered lives, for we would be able to neatly explain them away. Our question would be answered, and we could move on. But as long as the pain of innocence remains a burning question, we are bothered by its existence. And as long as we can't explain pain, we must alleviate it. If innocent people suffering does not fit into our worldview, we must eradicate it. Rather than justifying their pain, we need to get rid of it. So basically he's saying that us not understanding why something bad is happening motivates us to try and alleviate it. That doesn't make any sense. It's bullshit. Understanding why something bad happens does not make you apathetic to it. For instance, earthquakes. If a massive earthquake hit the UK where I live, I would understand why it happened. The build-up of pressure between tectonic plates. That doesn't make me any less concerned with helping people who were affected by it. There is no reason to assume that just because someone understands why something is happening, that they would be any less concerned by its effects. Now, like Matt Slick, this guy has an amazing last paragraph. We don't want answers, we don't want explanations, and we don't want closure. We want an end to suffering. And we dare not leave it up to God to alleviate suffering. He's waiting for us to do it. That's what we're here for. God made us and then made bad things happen to us in order for us to fix them, and that's the point of existence. Ugh. Jews. Alright, well, I guess that's the end of this video. Hang on. Don't you worry, Christians, Jews, and angry atheists who are secretly racist. I haven't left Islam out. I will be criticising Islam. I'm not one of those wishy-washy YouTube atheists who only goes after Christianity and Judaism but bows in reverence for Islam, like D-Land and Cole, Scouse Casper XS, or that complete twait Coughlin, those knobs. I am going to criticise Islam, so put your pitchforks away. My first criticism, by the way, is actually not about anything specific that any Muslim I'm going to talk about says. The first thing I want to say is that as I was looking through all the answers to this question that were made by Muslims, I did notice that a lot of the time, instead of saying, why do bad things happen to good people, they'd say, why do bad things happen to Muslims? Or why do bad things happen to believers? I love that they make that distinction, just putting it out there. Anyway, the first guy finally gets to the point halfway through his answer with this. This life here on earth is a test from Allah, as you have rightly pointed out. The whole idea is whether or not we will worship Allah with all of our heart, mind and soul, or whether we will choose to devote our slevs to something other than Allah. The reason why bad things happen to good people is because it's a test. I've dealt with this before in a video that I think I titled, God Tests Us? Fuck off! Always the wordsmith me, but I guess I'll just give you an outline here. The idea that God tests us is absolute bullshit. Why on earth would an all-powerful, all-knowing God create people in order to be tested to see if they can then return to him or to heaven or whatever? I mean, surely an all-knowing God would know in advance which of his creations would do good and which ones would devote themselves to something other than Allah. At which point God is just arbitrarily creating heaven and hell-bound people. You're going to heaven, you're going to hell, you're going to heaven, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're definitely going to hell, you're going to heaven because you've got nice tits. You can thank me for that later, by the way. But moving on to the second Islamic answer to this mind-blowing question, do bad things happen to the believers? And then in brackets, good people. Again, I love that they make that distinction. But here's the answer to that question. Do bad things happen to the believers, good people? Yes, they do. But they appear bad to the believers because they are things that people don't like. Who likes breaking a leg? However, when a bad thing happens to the believer, this believer is patient. He praises Allah in all circumstances. He knows Allah does not decree something unless it is for his own good. And that creates a rather interesting situation when you're saying that whatever happens, God is always good. So if God does a good thing, it's God being good. And if God is doing a bad thing, again, God is being good. And you can't argue with that. If someone has got that belief that God is always good, no exceptions, there's no way to reason with them. You can't show them any example of any bad thing happening that will ever convince them otherwise. But how can breaking a leg be good for a believer? Misspelled believer? God damn it, what is it with Muslims? First 9/11, now this. Anyway, how could breaking a leg be good for a believer? Because it is a chance for the believer to think about what he did wrong. We're bringing it on ourselves, folks. It's all our fault. Everything bad that happens to us is our fault. And these bad things that happen to us give us a chance to think about our wrongdoings and how we were such an affront to the Lord. And again, it's something you can't argue with. I'm trying to make this as clear as possible. By saying that there are no exceptions, it means that no matter what you say, they will always respond, God is always good, and you always brought it upon yourself. And you can't argue with that. It's a bit like the invisible pink unicorn. The very nature of the way that it's constructed makes it impossible for you to refute it. I hope I've sort of made that clear. So there you have it. The responses given to the question, why do bad things happen to good people, from the 3 Abrahamic religions. Basically all simmer down to, shut up, stop asking questions, God is always good and you always deserve it. Which isn't really an explanation, it's more of a distraction or an excuse. And having said all of that, I think that the atheist answer to this question is far more concise, profound, and all-encompassing than any answer given by any religious person. Why do bad things happen to good people? Because shit happens. It just cocking well does. But hang on a minute, I hear you Christians, Jews and Muslims say. I've got an answer to this question that you didn't talk about. Yeah, you refuted these guys, but I've got a proper answer to this question. If that sounds like you right now, send me a video response. I never claimed that the Christians I talked about in this video were representative of all Christians, nor that the Jew was representative of all Jews, or the Muslims were representative of all Muslims. If you think you've got an answer, let me know. Believe me, I'd love to hear it. This is gonna take ages to edit. Goodbye everyone, and remember, however way you look at it, no matter where you stand on this WikiLeaks thing, we all have to admit that Julian Assange does look like he'd be in Slytherin. Just saying.